The wind screamed across the unfinished bridge like a warning that came too late, carrying the smell of cold steel and wet concrete, and in that single frozen moment, one man stretched across the edge, one officer dangling over a terrifying drop, and a dog braced with impossible determination. Everything that had ever been broken, forgotten, or abandoned came rushing back to demand an answer. Before this story pulls you deeper, take a second right now. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unseen heroes, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Small actions like that help stories like this reach hearts that desperately need them. The unfinished bridge stood at the edge of the city like a scar that never healed, concrete ending abruptly in midair, guardrails missing, warning signs long faded by sun and rain. It was a place locals avoided and truckers cursed, a structure built with good intentions and abandoned halfway when funding dried up and politics shifted. On that gray morning, fog wrapped the bridge in silence, blurring the drop below into a depth that looked endless. It was there that Thomas Hale found himself once again standing on the edge, though not the kind he had once known overseas. Thomas was a U.S. veteran, the kind that never talked about his service unless asked directly, and even then only in fragments. Years earlier, he had served with discipline and belief, trusting orders and brotherhood, until an explosion took more than friends and left him with memories that never stopped replaying. When he returned home, the country thanked him, shook his hand, and slowly forgot him. Work came and went. Nights were sleepless. Crowded places made his chest tighten. He lived quietly now, doing contract repair jobs wherever he could, moving from site to site with his German shepherd, Rex, the one constant that kept him anchored to the present. Rex was not just a dog, he was a trained service animal who had learned to read Thomas's breathing, posture, and silence better than any human ever could. Where Thomas carried storms inside him, Rex carried steadiness. Every morning, they followed the same routine: early start, coffee in a dented thermos, quiet drives before traffic woke up the city. That morning, a repair job had brought them near the unfinished bridge. Thomas parked farther than usual, sensing something unsettled in the air, and walked with Rex toward the structure, boots crunching against gravel and loose concrete. That was when he heard it, not a scream, but a sharp, panic sound cut short by wind. Thomas's body reacted before his mind caught up. Training took over. His muscles tightened, eyes scanning, breath steadying. He broke into a run, Rex instantly matching his pace, ears alert. As they reached the edge of the bridge, the sight before them stole the air from Thomas's lungs. A police officer was slipping. She was young but seasoned, her uniform dark against the pale concrete, one arm flailing for balance as the other clutched the edge. Below her was nothing but fog and distance. Her foot had caught on loose debris while she responded to a call about trespassers, and in seconds, routine duty had turned into a fight against gravity. Her face showed fear, not the loud kind, but the quiet realization that help might not come in time. Thomas did not think about his past or his pain. He dropped flat on his stomach, boots scraping as he slid forward, fingers stretching until they locked around her wrist. The force nearly pulled him forward, the weight of another life hanging in his grip. Concrete burned his palms. Muscles screamed. His heart pounded not with panic, but with purpose. He had held onto people before under worse conditions, and he knew one truth deeply: letting go was not an option. Rex positioned himself instinctively, paws planted, body low, teeth gripping the back of Thomas's jacket. The dog understood leverage, tension, and balance. Wind howled louder, rattling loose metal. The bridge creaked like it remembered what it was never finished to do: protect. Time slowed. Cars were distant echoes. No one else was around. Thomas felt the old familiar tremor in his hands, the same one that came when memories tried to pull him under. But Rex's weight behind him grounded him, a living anchor pressing him forward. Thomas adjusted his grip, pulling inch by inch, arms shaking violently. The officer's free hand scrabbled against the concrete, fingernails scraping uselessly. Her breath came fast, shallow, the sound of someone trying not to panic. Then something changed. Rex released Thomas's jacket. For a split second, fear flared hotter than the wind. Thomas felt the sudden loss of counterweight and his chest tightened. But Rex did not retreat. Instead, the dog moved forward, stepping onto Thomas's back with deliberate care, distributing his weight, lowering his center of gravity. Then, in a move no one could have predicted, Rex leaned forward and clamped his jaws gently but firmly onto the officer's sleeve, just above her elbow. The shift was immediate. The added point of contact stabilized her arm, reduced the strain on Thomas's grip, and created a triangle of support where there had only been desperation. Rex's paws dug into Thomas's jacket, claws gripping fabric without piercing skin. His body trembled with effort, but his eyes were focused, calm, determined. Thomas felt it, the difference between failure and possibility. With a deep breath that felt like reclaiming a part of himself long buried, Thomas pulled again. Muscles tore and burned, but the distance shortened. Inch by inch, life overcame gravity. The officer's chest reached the edge. Rex adjusted his grip, careful not to hurt, providing just enough assistance to keep her from slipping back. When her knee finally hooked over the concrete, the tension snapped into release. They collapsed together, three bodies tangled on cold concrete, breathing hard, alive. Sirens wailed in the distance now, growing closer. Thomas rolled onto his side, chest heaving, staring up at the gray sky. Rex sat immediately, eyes scanning, posture alert but calm, as if the extraordinary thing he had just done was simply part of the job. The officer lay on her back, hands shaking, eyes wet with shock and relief. She was alive because someone who had every reason to turn away chose not to. When backup arrived, the bridge filled with movement and noise, radios crackling, hands offering blankets and water. Thomas stayed quiet, sitting against the concrete barrier, Rex pressed against his leg. Officers thanked him repeatedly, voices thick with emotion, but he nodded politely, uncomfortable with attention. Recognition had never been what he sought. He had stepped forward because he could not do otherwise. Later, as the fog lifted and daylight sharpened the edges of the city, the story spread. News outlets replayed the footage captured by a dash camera and a distant drone, images of a man lying flat on an unfinished bridge, a dog braced like a guardian, a life pulled back from the edge. People across the country shared the clip, stunned by Rex's instinct and Thomas's quiet courage. But what cameras could not capture was what happened inside Thomas. That night, for the first time in years, sleep came without nightmares. Not because the past had disappeared, but because something new had taken root alongside it. Saving that officer did not erase the losses Thomas carried, but it gave them meaning. It reminded him that he was still capable of holding someone up when everything else fell away. The officer recovered fully. She visited Thomas weeks later, not in uniform, but as a person who wanted to say thank you face to face. She met Rex properly then, kneeling to his level, hands gentle, eyes filled with gratitude that words struggled to express. Thomas watched quietly, feeling something loosen in his chest. The unfinished bridge was finally closed off after the incident, barriers erected, repairs scheduled. It would no longer be a place where lives dangled over nothing. In a strange way, Thomas felt the same about himself. He had lived too long at an edge he never admitted existed. That day, pulled by necessity and guided by loyalty, he stepped back. Stories like this remind us that heroes do not always wear capes or seek applause. Sometimes they wear worn jackets, carry invisible scars, and walk beside dogs who understand them better than the world ever did. Sometimes bravery looks like lying flat on cold concrete, trusting another being with your life, and refusing to let go. If this story reached you, if it made you feel something, reminded you of the good still alive in quiet corners, please take a moment now to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive, traveling farther than any unfinished bridge ever could. And before this video ends, we have one special request. Please comment below with a single word that describes how this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. Because somewhere out there, someone standing on the edge might need to hear that courage, loyalty, and second chances are real, and that sometimes, the next move that saves everything comes from a place no one expected.